Welcome to another edition of Owning an Allotment. After a glorious summer, and I mean a glorious summer, we had a positive heat wave here, as many of you will know. You can see the plants, even though we've had a heat wave, they've still grown. Turnips, Swedes, peas, lettuces, carrots, all sorts have all come up and they've all done very, very well. The raised beds and the soil I think has really helped. I've had weed suppressant membrane down to keep moisture in. And I think that's really helped over the summer in making sure everything has done very, very well for me. Now of course summer's gone, and in good old British fashion it's back to grey and miserable. At the time of recording right now, we got the tail end of a hurricane. I think it's Hurricane Helena is coming in over the Irish Sea, and we're just getting the tail end of it. We've had yellow warnings for wind today, so I've just come down to secure anything that needs securing. But what I thought I'd do is just give you an update on the plot, show you what's happening, what's not, and I give you all the jobs that we can get onto in this sort of slightly dull and a little bit disappointing September, considering we were told it was going to be an Indian summer. Still waiting, still hoping, but in the meantime there's still lots and lots we can get on with. Right, now the rhubarb. The rhubarb had an excellent start to the year. It absolutely loved the beginning of the year. The hot weather, it wasn't so keen on that. It did struggle a little. It was struggling, but I've mulched mine. There was about 4 inches of compost on there, so it wasn't too bad. I could get away without watering it too often. But now you can see it's looking fantastic. There's lots of new growth, lots of leaves on there. Now on an established patch like this, you could probably, I know you shouldn't, I know people say don't, but you could probably get away with harvesting a bit of it. It may be a little tough and slightly bitter, it depends. I'm going to take some home today and see what it's like, but with sort of the hot weather and then sort of all the rain recently and the fresh growth, it might well be okay. So I figured what I'd do is I'll try some of this, give it a go, because I've got some apples off my trees, I've got loads of blackberries, I've got loads of raspberries, so I'm going to really give those a try and see how they come out. Now next to the rhubarb we have the summer fruiting raspberries. Now these did dreadfully. You can see, if we come in here, you can see these were the fruits. The fruits were tiny, they just shriveled, and they really did not like the hot weather. They really objected to it in the strongest possible way. So these have been a bit of a disaster. So at this time of year, about September, it's a good time to cut these down. So what you do is these fruit on last year's vines. So these branches are this year's growth. You can see here they're nice and green. So these are this year's growth, so these will be left. These will produce next year's fruit. All these branches here, you can see the brown ones, all of these need cutting back. Cut them back to ground level and then burn them, compost them, whatever you do with them. So cut all your summer fruiting raspberries down to ground level, leaving the green new shoots which will produce fruit next year. Now the autumn raspberries, you can see those over there. Let's just go a bit closer to them. So the ground's actually quite uneven where I've not finished levelling it off. These raspberries have done very, very well. I mean, look at the amount of fruit just on that branch there. There's absolutely loads. I've got lots and lots of fruit on off of this raspberry already this year, and there's even more coming up now. Again, once these are finished fruiting, it's about November time, you would cut these back again. Just cut all of it right down to ground level, and they'll all come back next year quite happily. These have been very, very nice. Like I said, I cannot believe the amount I've had off them, and you can see nice looking fruit. Some of them are overripe. The trouble with raspberries, though, I'm sure you'll agree with me, is you look at them and go, they're not quite ripe, they're not quite ripe. Then you turn your back for 5 minutes and then they're overripe. They're very, very difficult to gauge. And you can see these ones are quite overripe there. That one's quite squashy by comparison, whereas this one's quite firm. So that's all we need to do with those. So those will get cut back probably about November time when they have finished fruiting. So just leave them to now. I'm going to harvest all these. I might even be lucky and get some more off them. Look, you can see there's some new raspberries forming, so that's great for me. Continuing around the plot, you can see there's been some wind damage here where it's pulled the weed membrane out. Same over there, it's blown the weed membrane out. So all this is going to be replaced. The hot summer to me was brilliant because it killed all the weeds off. I was really able to get on top of a lot of stuff. So what I'm aiming to do over the winter is all this area here. I need to give it a good weed, mulch it, and then I'm going to cover it with weed membrane, and hopefully that will be okay. Now, the beans. This year I grew violet podded beans, and you can see one of them there. They do lose their colour when cooked, sadly. A little bit disappointing, but you can see there's loads of beans up there. There's some new beans coming up here. So, you know, you can see it's still very, very productive. Now, this bean plant, to be perfectly honest with you, has been amazing. No pun intended. I didn't plant too many, to be fair. I planted, there's probably about 10 beans planted down here. 10, 11 beans, something like that. I didn't plant a lot. I didn't particularly, to be really truthful, look after them as well as I could have done. And they produce a whopping crop. I've already got a freezer full. I've given them to everyone I know. And then I took about 30 pounds of beans down to the local soup kitchen for them to use, because I simply can't use them all. So it's done absolutely fantastically. I'm very, very impressed with this variety. And bizarrely enough, the seeds, I got these seeds last year from Wilco in sort of their seed sale. So the packet cost me something like 10p. So I've had more than my money's worth out of them. So these stay up. I'm going to continue to harvest them until they start to sort of die back. Once they die back, obviously the frame will be removed, and then they will be cut at ground level. The roots will stay in the ground to rot down because the roots fix nitrogen into the soil. Same with all beans. The roots fix nitrogen into the soil and just help fertilise. It should be part of your crop rotation. Over here we've got the sweet peas. These were trialled for Mr. Fothergill's. These were at Lady Salisbury. To be fair, they produce a good show of flowers. You can see you've got ranging from white to sort of a delicate pink colour, a bit of lavender, so sort of violet-y colour as well. They've done well. I've saved a lot of seeds for next year, and again these will just be cut and everything taken down and removed. They've done very well. I don't think they did as well as they could have done, and I think that's purely because of the heat. They really did struggle in the summer months, unfortunately. All these beds, if you remember, I put these beds to bed for winter. These are new. They've all got manure in. They need a bit of repair. You can see the winds pulled the plastic off, like over there. So just going to sort all these out over the next few weeks. And you can see over here, butternut squash plant. Unfortunately, it's running a bit late. I think it's running late again. The weather just did not help this plant at all. It's really struggled for me anyway. I know some of you have had lots of success with your butternut squash, but I'm not one of them, sadly. So I'm going to leave this in place. The first frost will kill it. So let's see if it does anything before the first frost. It might do, might surprise me, but then again it might not. And you can see this is the gherkin plants. Now these have absolutely loved being outside. Let me see if I find, there you are. Oh, let's get this one off. Oh, gherkins. These, kind of like courgettes, you know, you see them, they're a bit too small, and you think, oh, they're too small, I'm not going to pick that yet. You come back to the next day, and it's about 3 times the size, and you think, oh no, it's too big. These have been great. Only trouble is I now have more pickled gherkins than you can possibly ever use in a lifetime. I've no idea what I'm going to do with them all. I've got jars and jars of them all over the kitchen. I've given loads to friends and family. And just, you know, kind of like courgettes, we're all a bit sick of them now. Only planted 2 of these plants, and let's get that one up. Oh, there you are. So see, that's a bit of a better size, isn't it? Only planted 2 of these plants, and they've done phenomenally well. They really, really have, and you can see plenty of new growth. Here you are. Let's get this one out. Oh, excuse me. There you are. You can see the size difference there, but they are. Like I said, they're kind of like courgettes, and you turn your back and suddenly they're massive. But as I said, brilliant. They've done phenomenally well. That's a Cape gooseberry as well. I've got another one I deliberately planted. I've got about 2 of them there, and I've no idea how they got there. I don't remember planting them there because I only planted a couple of seeds and they went up that end of the allotment, so quite what those got there, I don't know. But they're growing, they're doing well, and they're looking good. Down in here we have our cucumbers, and again you can see they're doing very well. There's one there, a couple there. I've had a good crop of cucumbers, and they've done very, very well. Again, the cucumbers have seemed to really enjoy being outside. I think the hot weather is obviously a major factor for them. They have absolutely loved the heat. And you see there's another one, see what I mean? They've absolutely loved the heat and grown very, very well indeed. So I'm really, really pleased with these. I've never, to be honest with you, I've never really had a lot of success with cucumbers. Always found them very, very difficult to grow, and they've never performed particularly well for me. Yet this year, again, virtually ignored them, and they have done fantastically. Again, I'm putting a lot of it down to the heat. Just having a look, I can't see what this is. But you can see the vines are brilliant. There's gherkins everywhere. As I said, I've had such a huge crop of these. They've been fantastically. If I'm just continuing on your side here, a sunflower. Don't know where that came from either, but it's appeared and it's done really, really well. And it frustrates me sometimes, you know, because you plant your plants and you nurture them and you look after them, and they struggle. These things seed purely by accident, and they do fantastically. It can be very, very frustrating. Over here we've got sort of the beetroot bed. So again, lovely crop of beetroot. There's all sorts of different varieties. You can see we're coming down here. That one. There's purple, white, long one, elongated ones, and golden ones in there. So they've done very, very well. So quite pleased with them. To be fair, they seem to slow down. They did very well when it was warm, and now it's sort of got a bit cooler and wetter. They just don't seem to be growing quite as well. So this all needs tidying up. So a lot of the jobs are just sort of tidying up and put everything in bed for winter. That's the remains of the radishes. All those are coming up and going on the compost heap in the next week. They've been left in place for one reason, and that's because we have a lot of bees on this site. There's communal bees, and then there's several people that actually have their own beehives here. And there was sort of late August, early September, there was a real lack of flowers around on the site, whereas these had bolted and gone to flower. So I'd left them because they were covered in honeybees. And I thought, and when speaking to a beekeeper, they said, oh, you know, something like the radishes are great for the bees because there's not a lot around. So I thought, no harm for me. I don't need the space. I'll leave them in there and let the bees enjoy them. And you can see there's still a couple of bees floating around. The flowers are almost done, so I can take those out. And there's some lettuces. Next to it, some lettuces. They've really struggled. Again, I don't think they enjoyed the heat. I planted them quite early on in the season, and they just really didn't take, and then suddenly they've popped up and they've done very well. Now, carrots. Carrots are another one of those things I have always struggled with. I've never been able to grow carrots very easily. I've tried all sorts of things, and this year I thought, right, double height raised bed, 2 pallet collars stuck on top of each other. Half fill it with manure, leave that to rot for a year, and then dig in sand and compost, decent compost. And let's just pull one up. We have carrots. We have lots and lots of carrots, and they're really nice. Like I said, I've always struggled with carrots. You know, we all have our veg that we find very easy to grow. Everyone does. Everyone has veg that they do well with, and everyone has veg that they struggle with. I mean, look at that one. That's nice. Nice sized carrot. These aren't quite ready yet. There's still plenty of growing time left in them. And like I said, I've been thinning them out and picking a few at a time, and taking them home. But I mean, oh, they smell proper carroty. They're absolutely lovely. But as I said, we all have veg that we struggle with. You know, I mean, I know some people that can't grow sweet corn. Other people that it just grows like magic for them. And for me, carrots have been one of those veg I've always struggled with. Here's another one. Let's get this one out. Look at that. Oh, it's delicious. Absolutely lovely. Yet this year, I sort of thought, right, I'm not going to grow them in the soil, which is what I normally do. I'll grow them in this special mix in the raised planter. And they have done really well. I've got one bed there. That bed there has got Mr. Fothergill's carrots in that I've been trialling for them. And then that's just a random selection of carrots. Now if I get some of these out, oh, let's just, oh wow, there you are. That's a yellow carrot. I had a packet of those as well, so that's come up nicely. Let's just put that there for a minute. Let's see if I find, look at all the foliage is lovely. Like I said, it's very carroty. Another yellow one, and then over here, let's just get one out, and you can see these are a slightly lighter colour. These are the Mr. Fothergill ones, and they're not a deep orange like some of the other ones, but they've come up very well. You can see if I, oh dear, if I bring these over here, you'll see that there's quite a difference in colour between them. Look at that, you see the difference. But they all taste fantastic. Now, I've been eating these raw, I've not even been cooking these. But when you do plant your carrots, what you should do is thin them out, which is basically what you do is they get to a certain height and then sort of remove every other one or every couple. And what that does is that gives them more room to grow. So what you do is you take every couple of carrot plants out, and then in their place the other ones will grow up and expand. So let's just, oh, there you are, see that, there's another one. And then all you do is you start when they're relatively small, and then you've got baby carrots, and then you just keep doing it as they grow, leaving the rest of the carrots in the ground, and you end up with lots and lots of lovely carrots. Oh no. Right, here we are. Oh. Remember what I was saying about my gherkins growing massive? Looked at this a couple of days ago and it was about a third of that size. Now it's the length of my arm, so that'll be stuffed. Courgettes, again, for me this year hasn't been a good year for courgettes. I know, so let's just put that down there. Now I know some of you have had a phenomenal year for your courgettes, but mine, I don't know what it was this year. Again, I'm putting it down to the heat. They really struggled for ages and ages and ages. Didn't grow, didn't move, stayed tiny, and then about 4 or 5 weeks ago, they just suddenly shot off and started growing. But the trouble is they've got some fruit on, but they're not really that productive. I mean, this wasn't even here a couple of days ago. That was another giant one. They're nowhere near as productive as they have been on other years. I'm not sure why. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I think it's to do with the heat, because I know some plants are very sensitive, like lettuces. Once the temperature hits sort of 30+ degrees, they struggle to germinate, and I think these have really struggled. I mean, all of these were planted at the same time. Look at the size of that one compared to the size of that one compared to the size of that one. And this is the problem I've had with these, is they've been very variable, and I think it comes down to purely the heat. So this bed will be covered later in the year, soon, and left till next year, and something else will be planted here. But unfortunately they have struggled. Right, a quick visit to the apple tree. Look, there's an apple up there. I can't for the life of me remember the varieties. I've lost the labels. But anyway, they've done okay. They're going to get trained and pruned this year. So I want to train them to go horizontally. And they've actually established themselves enough this year that I can do it. Plus I've got some more fruit trees that are grafted that I'm going to plant down here and basically sort of make a fence. The red currant, black currants, gooseberry and loganberry. Again, they've all been planted. I put them through the weed membrane, try and keep them under control. Just need tidying up really. Surprisingly, they were actually the black currants and the red currants were very productive this year, so can't grumble at all. Hiding out under here is a pumpkin. See, it's a reasonable size, isn't it? Not too bad. That's to be fair, that's probably about right. I could probably get away with picking that one. That's an Atlantic giant. Again, it barely did anything for ages and ages and ages, and then suddenly just sort of shot off. This one here, again planted at the same time, one small fruit on it, hasn't done very well at all. Again, I think the hot weather has caused a lot of havoc this year. I really do. These were the dwarf French beans. Absolutely fantastic crop out of these. I genuinely cannot grumble at how productive these were. Again, these were going to get cut back. The roots are going to be left in there because obviously the roots fix nitrogen, and then what I will do is top it out with manure and cover the bed for winter. So these are all jobs that I'm going to do later in the week. Unfortunately, at the moment, it does look like it's going to throw it down any minute. Now, I planted my peas very late, I'll be honest with you. I love that sound. These went in very late indeed, and they've actually grown quite well. You see, I've got 2 crops of them. I just pretty much planted them over the summer, something to fill the space. And look, you can see they're a nice sized pea, and really nice and sweet as well, actually. I must admit, peas are one of those vegetables that rarely ever make it home, because they are so nice. I love them fresh off the plant. But they've actually done all right. There's quite a few on there that need harvesting. They'll be all right for the next couple of weeks. Same with these. These should produce fruit before the end of the year. My lettuce crop, again, that's done really well. I need to start harvesting this and using it. I've got loads of different types of lettuce in there. They've all done, again, surprisingly well. Under here, oh look,
those are turnips. Those are white globe turnips. And over here, these are meant to be Swedes, but they haven't really done anything. Oh, there's a weed there. Stupid. So they haven't done very well. And then there is pak choi, which has done actually all right. And let's just have a quick look at one of these carrots from in here. Pull one up. Again, there you are, look. So all you do, you see, you go along and you just remove a couple of carrots as you go down. What you need to be careful of is try not to expose the tops of the carrots, because if you expose the tops of the carrots, that sort of can attract carrot fly if that's prevalent. That can attract carrot fly if it's prevalent in your area, so you've got to be quite careful disturbing them. If there is carrot fly in your area, net them with something real tight netting, like a scaffold netting, something like that. So put all those down there. So if you use a very tight netting, it'll keep the carrot flies off, and then hopefully you'll be okay. Now we're going to just go down the front here, wade past these raspberries. The sweet corn's done quite well this year. The mare's tail's done better, but you can see. So I left some of these on here because they just hadn't really developed particularly well. You know they're ripe when they've got the tassels on the end go brown. You see, like that. That's when you know your sweet corn's ripe. And then all you do is you can pull it back, have a look, and then you should be able to see the sweet corn in there. Look, there you are. And whatever that bug is, there's a bug in that one. It's hard to take that off because a couple of these are still good. So you can see that's not too bad. If you look down this side, you can see some of the cobs haven't formed properly, some of the kernels. All that means is that pollination was poor. So it means around about pollination time there wasn't enough wind. Now I did plant mine in the block, but they could probably have benefited from me coming along and giving them a good shake, to be fair. I think that would probably helped a lot in it would help them a lot in decent pollination. I've got a couple more. There was one there. There is one. Let's just take that off and put them over here. So excuse me for waving the camera around quite a bit. Again, there you are. That looks right, doesn't it? Let's just check this one. This one. Put the camera down. Yeah, it might not be full size. I'll call that a mini corn on the cob. Still looks right, doesn't it? It's still edible. See, the thing is anything you grow at home isn't going to be shot perfect. And I think that's one of the important things you have to remember. I know a lot of people will look at your sort of homegrown beans or whatever and go, "Oh, I'm not eating those, they're a funny shape." Yeah, they're a funny shape because they haven't had pesticides and God knows what else applied to them. And that's how they grow in the wild. So you do end up with things being a bit of a peculiar shape. It's just the way these things are. Now, these are the Cape gooseberries I actually planted. I know. Right. There's quite a few on the plant, and you can see they've actually. Oh, they smell quite nice. I've never really eaten Cape gooseberries. Don't really know much about them. But I thought, I'll try growing them and see what they're like. So I've got a few. You can see there's a couple in there. These are all the right ones. If you come back over, you can see there's others sort of coming up here. You can see like that. They're not mature yet, but they're still growing. So there's a few right ones. So I'll leave those to grow.
I think these Cape gooseberries are frost hardy. I can't remember, to be honest, but we'll find out. Again, another nice collection of weeds here. This is sort of vaguely a herb garden. There's some chives there that you can see have self-seeded, and a rosemary bush. I didn't plant any potatoes this year, to be fair, because all this area around here had potatoes in last year, and I didn't want to plant them in it again because they had all sorts of problems with wireworm and everything else. But as I say, I've got a couple of herbs there. They just need a bit of thinning and tidying because the chives have actually seeded, and there's lots and lots of chive plants. So I want to put chives all down the edge here because I figure, again, they'll make a really nice border for the bees. You can see second plant there, second Cape gooseberry plant. Because I've never tried them before. I have planted a lot of them, haven't I? 2 bay trees. These were rescued from somewhere like B&Q for 50p a plant, and they've shot up. They've done really, really well. So I'll harvest some leaves and plant them. Marjoram. Never ever use marjoram in cooking, but I have it every year for the bees. Again, attracts bees like nobody's business. And my blackberries have done very, very, very well. These desperately need picking. And you can see some of them have actually gone over on the branches now. But we have had quite a lot of rain over the last few days. Again, these will need cutting back probably in the next month or so. Cut back all the branches that are fruited this year, and leave the new growth. So this is the new growth. You can see the difference. That's the new growth, and then this is the old growth here. You know, and up there you can see it looks sort of worn. This is a vibrant, much more vibrant colour. So this, like summer fruiting raspberries, produces fruit on the previous year's growth. So these will be, the new ones will be left in place, and the old ones will be cut back and probably burnt. And then finally around here, a couple of blueberry bushes. You see they've got some blueberries on them. Not a massive crop. Well, oh, actually they're quite nice, but they've done all right. And you put them in last winter, and to be fair, I only put them in here because I didn't know where else to put them. I had to put them in the ground before they suffered. And there's some, I think the Japanese walking onions in there as well, and all the ways. But these beds, I've inherited these, and they're in the right state. They are full of weeds, they're falling apart, and they just need rebuilding. So I've deliberately left these alone, and I'm going to rebuild them over the winter. And these are the other apple trees. You can see one there, and one there. These are heritage varieties, and what I did with them is I went to a grafting workshop, and they're on a dwarf rootstock, and then I can't remember the varieties. It's got them written down somewhere. So the idea is these will be transplanted over that side, and they will form a bit of a fence for me. So that's sort of what's happening down at the plot, and you can see I've tidied up the middle there. You wouldn't believe it, but that was about 2 foot deep in rubbish, and that's just the stuff I tidied up from around the plot. So I've kept the stuff that I think might be useful. There's still a lot of tidying up to do, lots of bits to throw away, but I've done a lot of work clearing it, and the plot's a lot tidier than it was. You know, at the end of the day, I'm quite pleased with how this end of the plot looks. I know it's a bit overgrown and it's a bit untidy at the moment, but that's purely because the plants are in it. Once all the plants are gone and it's all covered like this, it's going to look lovely. The aim of the game is next week or so to put in my winter onions. I've got lots of onion sets. I've got some beds to put them in, so I'm going to uncover those beds and get the winter onions in the next sort of week. But again, at the moment, sadly, it really is weather permitting. The weather's been dreadful here, and it's going to start raining probably in the next sort of half hour or so, I would have thought, looking at that. But I'm going to go and try my first Cape gooseberry. Wish me luck. I've no idea what they taste like, but that's part of the fun of allotmenting, isn't it? Growing things you have no idea what they are. So I'm going to tidy up, finish picking a few things, and then that's me done for the day. But it's all coming along very, very nicely, and I'll do some more, answer any questions you've got, or help you with any more tips, and just basically show you what's happening over the winter months, because there's lots and lots of things we can do as it gets cooler. And the only trouble is, of course, is the rain gets in the way of it. And if I remember, I'll also show you all the chili plants that I've got at home, and you can see how well those have done this year too.